So, I wanted to make a short, quick guide for players who just started Battle Cats. But I still ended up making a video that's like kind of long, sorry. There's just too much things that I want to talk about. But I'm still gonna try to keep things short. If you have like specific questions that you want answers to, you can check the timestamps. But I would recommend watching the entire video anyways. I do have a much longer beginner's guide, but I figured that new players probably wouldn't really want to sit down for like a 40 minutes video, telling them like the nitty-gritty details on like what they have to do to go through like the most optimal way or whatever. If you're watching this video, I'm going to assume several things. It's either you're like 1, stuck somewhere in the early game and wants help, or 2, you're like competitive for something and you just want to get things done quick, or you want to like catch up with someone, or 3, you're watching this for fun even though you're already like in the late game or whatever, which is fair, or 4, you're here because of a collab and you want to like get the collab units as soon as possible. Now, this video is mainly for beginners that really just started the game. If you're past Empire of Cats, many of the topics here might be something you already know, but there could be some tips that you missed somewhere. I wouldn't really get into like the details of what to do after Empire of Cats because there's just way too much to talk about there. You can just kind of play whatever you want to see. So first, let me talk about some basic knowledge and I guess like the golden rules of the game. I also talk about like how to get resources and some other tips that might be related and whatnot. Again, you can check like the timestamp for like specific things that you might want answers to. So let's first talk about some basic knowledge. If you want like the TLDR of like, okay, how do I beat things fast? If you're like on Empire of Cats, the TLDR of how to beat things fast is to buy a Ninja Cat from the Special Cats section and then invest all of your XP on it and then spam Ninja Cat as much as possible. Like that's the one singular trick to go through the early game fast. That's like about as simple as it gets. Obviously, it's not gonna win every stage, but it's a good start. Okay, let me get into like some actual combat tips aside from the TLDR. If you're in early game, Wildcat is a must-bring unit. Well, I say early game, but like no, Wildcat is basically like one of the best units in general for like the entire game. Not just for early game, even in late game, people still use Wildcat variants because it is easily one of the best units in the game. It is an extremely cost-efficient tanker. Bring it on like absolutely every stage. Wildcat is really good when you pair it with everything else that you might have. For example, if you're against short-range enemy, you can pair Wildcat and Birdcat. Or if you're against higher-range enemy, then you can pair Wildcat and Lizardcat or Grosscat. These are just examples, there's loads of different alternatives. Other combat tip is that God Miracles and Continues are never worth it. You basically never ever need to use any of these for the entire game. These are scams meant to trick you out of your cat foods. If you are losing, however, there is another tip. Before you completely lose a stage, you can tab out and force quit Battle Cats, and if you open back Battle Cats, it will restart the stage from the beginning without you needing to pay for anything. That way, you won't lose the energy or the power-ups that you used on that attempt for that stage. But you can't change your lineup or anything, so if you're completely stuck, you're still gonna have to escape manually. Now, tips about building lineups. When it comes to knowing like which units are good or not, for example, a higher rarity unit doesn't always mean it's better. There's loads of common rare units that are some of the most important units in the game. So you might ask, if the rarity doesn't tell you how good a unit is, then how do I tell if a unit is good? Unfortunately, there's a very loaded question. I can't answer that question without going on like a 30-minute rant. If I were to simplify it for early game, you can brute force anything early game with any units with high stats. Ubers usually have good stats but might take way too long to spawn. Super rares tends to be the best in this category as they often have good stats while also being pretty cheap. Some units in rares also have really good stats while also being really cheap, especially some units that have the massive damage, strong against, or resistance ability. Keep in mind, this is a very basic generalization. There are many units that break this convention. There's also special cats, especially the purchasable special cats. For these guys, I would again highly recommend buying Ninja Cat and also Boogie Cat, especially if they're on discount. Even if they're not on discount, I would still highly recommend buying these two. If they are on discount, I would also recommend buying Box Cat, since Box Cat is fast and can clear stages fast so that you can farm stages faster. If you know which units are already good, then it's probably better to just focus your XP on upgrading those units, rather than trying to like spread your XP on multiple. The way leveling up works in this game is that it'll increase the unit's stats by a flat amount. So a unit going from like level 1 to level 5 has a very significant stat change, compared to something like going from level 19 to level 20. Granted, if you want to like spread your XP for multiple units because you got multiple units and you want to try it out, feel free to do that. It's kind of unoptimal, but like, if you got a new toy, you probably want to use it, right? Worst case scenario, you're probably just gonna have to farm XP a little bit more, which is really easy to do. Oh yeah, if you've unlocked all of the basic cats, you'll see a pop-up that says, "Congratulations, you've unlocked all of the basic cats." And then you check the dictionary and then there's a 10th cat. And you might be wondering, what's that about? Well, I did had a friend that talked about this cat, but unfortunately they got them. Didn't really want to follow their footsteps, so not gonna talk about this one. Okay, now let's talk about treasures. Treasures are are items that randomly drops from stages and can come in multiple different qualities. You can check your treasure on the treasure menu. If you have all treasures in a group at any quality, then it will activate a buff. This buff are very significant and even affect your units for the entire game, not just in these respectful chapters. They are kind of a pain to farm, but unfortunately they are very important. When it comes to getting treasure drops, there's no like secret objectives or like secret techniques or anything like that to get like better probability on treasure drops. It is completely purely luck. However, if there is treasure festival, then you can get a much higher chance to get treasures. So it's best to farm treasures when you see treasure festival is active. The schedule of treasure festival is on the calendar schedule. You can check the schedule by pressing the calendar button on the main menu and can even set notification for when things are active, including treasure festivals. You definitely want to eventually max out all treasures, but if you're not hard stuck on certain stages, then there's no rush. Ultimately, if you're not having fun farming treasures, then you can try doing something else. Speaking of, after Empire of Cats 1, you might see random stages change to have zombie enemies. These are zombie outbreaks, and beating each outbreaks gives cat food, and beating many of them can give extra treasure chance boost. These outbreaks are randomized and they're generally pretty hard to do, so I wouldn't really recommend doing them until you get much better units or have higher levels. Though I would recommend trying them at least once just to see what zombie enemies are like, because zombie enemies are some of the most interesting enemies in the game. Next up, let's talk about Gacha. When it comes to rolling Gacha, the best way to rack up as much Ubers as possible is to follow this chart on the screen right now. Rare tickets only for fest banners, which has a high Uber chance, and cat food only for banners which are marked as guaranteed, which activates if you do a 11 roll with cat food. If you are playing the game for like a collab of some sort, this guaranteed is what you're aiming for. Collab banners will always be scheduled to have guaranteed at some point. You might have to check online for when these guaranteed happens because it might not be active all the time. Usually it's active like a couple of days before the collab ends. However, if you are not aiming for specific Ubers, honestly feel free to spend your resources on like any banners. Even if you're like suboptimally spending your resources, getting common rares and super rares helps a lot in like making the early game much more smoother. Speaking of rolling for Gacha, never sell new units for XP. In fact, never sell anything for XP in general. The TLDR is that XP is one of the easiest resources to get in the game, while getting new units are significantly harder to get. If you rolled a duplicate of a unit that you already have, then there's two options. One, you can just use the dupe, which will increase the level of that unit, or two, you can keep the unit in the storage until you figure out what to do with it later. Later on in the game, you can sell these units for a resource that is way better than XP. But if you don't know how to judge it, then just leave it at the storage. Just don't sell it for XP. So then you might say, okay, but I still need XP. So then how do I farm EXP? Well, playing new stages will always give good XP. You can also upgrade your XP gain from the upgrade menu, and the Philosopher's Stone treasure will give you bonus XP drop from each battle too. There's also the XP farming stage on the legend stages section. XP stage activates certain hours on the weekdays, and the weekend stage is basically the exact same thing. They're active on like, well, weekends. You can check the schedule of XP stage on the calendar button on the menu as usual. There are multiple stages in the XP stage event, and you might think, okay, so the harder the stages, the more cost efficient it is to farm XP, right? Wrong. For some reason, the most energy efficient place to farm your XP is actually the easiest XP stage. Yeah, I do not understand why this is the case, but if you want to farm XP, just repeat the easiest one. This is the best early mid-game XP farming stage for some reason. Oh yeah, I should also probably talk about what legend stages are. So yeah, if you've beaten the first chapter of Empire of Cats, if you go to the chapter select menu, you can scroll to the right and see that there's a legend stage section. Legend stage is basically where like 95% of the content of the Battle Cats resides. The yellow stages, Stories of Legend, is your quote-unquote main progression. You can worry about this later. The red ones are event stages. These are like scheduled time stages. The purple stages are collab stages. If you are playing the game because of a certain collaboration event, this is probably what you want to play. Collab stages might drop some cat unit rewards for the collaboration units that you might want. If you want to know what stage drops what, you can click on the stage name and then hold the button on top left and it will show you what the rewards are. Usually people would advise you to focus on Empire of Cats first before touching any of the legend stages, but if you're bored of like farming treasures, then feel free to try out some of the legend stages. If you're worried about like, okay, what if I play the stage that's like too hard and I end up wasting my energy? If you want to know which stages are easy or hard, you can kinda guesstimate the difficulty based on the stars that are shown on each chapters. These stars are meant to represent the difficulty on the stages that are within the chapters. So a subchapter with only low amount of stars means that the stages within the subchapters are all easy. Do note that the stars are not perfect measurements, but it's good enough just to give you a kind of a general idea on what stages you can attempt. Speaking of other chapters, you might also see the Into the Future stages. These are basically the next thing you should tackle after beating Empire of Cats. It has a very similar structure but with very brand new enemy types. You can also technically tackle some of them if you're bored, but don't expect to be able to advance much. You can get cat food rewards if you beat future stages fast here, but it's not gonna be easy if you haven't completed the previous chapters and collected the treasures. So I wouldn't really rely on it to get cat foods. Well then, how about to get cat foods and tickets fast? Well, the first thing that I would say is Gold Pass. On the cat base, press the menu and pick Battle Cat's Officers Club. It will show you your player stats and it will also offer you a Gold Pass. Gold Pass is basically a 30-day membership where you can earn a rare ticket and also 30 cat food for up to 20 days, totaling for 600 cat food, potentially. This is free for your first time play, so don't be afraid to pick it up for your first Gold Pass. It'll give you a passive earning for cat food, which can be very nice to speed up getting resources early on the game. I think after the free trial, Gold Pass is like 10 bucks, and it's still one of the best steals when it comes to paying stuff in Battle Cats. I think, I'm actually not entirely sure, but it can also give you infinite speed up, which can make progression like way faster. Also, sometimes at the top of the cat base screen, you might see a button that says something like Wildcat Slots or Cat Scratcher. These two are free cat foods. They're usually active in like some celebrations or anniversary events and stuff like that. Whenever they're active, just press on it and do whatever they say. Wildcat Slots give you like almost 1,000 cat food or something if they're active. Other than that, if you want cat food, you can also just like advance through the legend stages or whatever other stages you can play. If you see any chapter with very low stars, then again, it might be possible for you to clear them. Clearing a subchapter will reward you with 30 cat food and a leadership. Pretty nifty. Aside from that, at the right of the legend stages, you might also see the Catclaw Dojo, and then you can check out the Catclaw Championships. This is kind of like a tutorial. They cost 0 energy to play while also slowly teaching you on how to play the game. But most importantly, this also gives you a massive amount of rewards for beating them. So definitely check it out. That's about it for like the main important stuff. If you have any other questions, you can always look up a guide online. This game has a massive community that is still active and have a guide for like everything. Or you can join like Discord server or something and just ask whatever to like anyone. Ultimately, the most important thing is whether you have fun or not. If you're still having fun, then that's all that matters. A lot of players will think like it's the end of the world if you sell a new unit or like use cat food unoptimally or whatever, but it's generally probably gonna be fine. As long as you don't repeat the same mistake like a millionth time, I guess, but it's generally probably gonna be fine. It's fine to make mistakes, especially in early game. I think that's about it for the early game guide. If you're still wondering on like what to do like past early game, yeah, that's probably a topic for another time. Like I mentioned, early mid game is like a massive branching path that goes like a billion different directions. So yeah, if you still have any thoughts or questions, feel free to leave it in the comments. And like, subscribe, join my membership or whatever. I make many Battle Cats videos and sometimes other games too. Hope you check those out if you're interested. And that's about it. Catch you another time. See ya.